development agreement and the I had that in my report.
Do you have any questions of you? Deborah, do you have questions of this? Both, as you step up, we need to both get you on the microphones. It's a little inconvenient. Have any questions of Mr. Question for him?
Would be up to FDA. a question? I mean, my answer to, believe it is gonna be safe.
Food, station, us that we would like to prove it.
What is the maximum?
I believe it's 56 units.
South side of 100. Well, I think it would even be under the mercy of Florida Department of Transportation.
I'm sorry, give me that again. What was the? Okay, the loading and unloading was supposed to take. Back close to the.
Any other questions from the commission? You have questions, Mr. Bodziak? Okay, thank you. All right, we got through that now.
If I may clarify, in light of that, I don't have anything to offer as additional.
This is your opportunity to present what you'd like to present to the commission. You were sworn in earlier, correct?
Mark Nichols.
First, I'd like to start with the parking. Providing most of the parking across the street from the hotel in the absence of an actual traffic signal is a horrible precedent, both for the property and for future developments along Gulf Boulevard. And it's going to create more than we already have. How many of you live in Madeira Beach? I do. I've lived here 12 years. Stop to the light, then we're going to go crosswalk, going to be stopped. Traffic delays question that's going to be. Now, to go ahead and say we're going to have this building on one side of the street. Oh, then I got to be told. I can tell you from my own experience and seeing what happened right in front of me the last 12 years that I've lived here. I'll tell you right now, I've seen people, a gentleman hit right in front. Also, the impact. People keep talking about the county. Buildings in front of us. That to me is a beach. Parking lot, I feel, should be for the beach people, not for anyone else, but if you're going to the beach. So I don't know how they're going to, I've listened to them say they're going to be able to have their employees park there and they're going to have plenty of parking. I question that. I really do. And if they start using the county parking lot for their services, it's already packed. Don't have red tie. That's a problem I see. Side street parking. Side streets. our condos all the time. It's noise. You're gonna have noise. If you're gonna have a roof car there, we're mystified. Came to this and from a business point of view, why you would want people coming into our city partying, they're going to be noise, and it's going to be speaking, it's going to be loud, it's going to destroy the entire. Not going to be good. So I don't know why, from a business point of view, gushing in it. That's another thing I'm concerned. Back in 2002, when there was construction, I actually hanging for months. Bang, bang, over and over. They're going to holes. Can you dig in an island till it? Be doing that. We had our actual. We had to get. Properties around this construction to make our properties are safe. Problems. And with the height, because I know only the height. Okay, originally it was 5 floors. What the height? And forget about well, you're concerned about your view, and it's going to mess. As there being more 9s, there's only 9s. The only big buildings. Only. So we're going to have this big 9-story building now with a rooftop bar, and the height. Master plan has a clear and defined limit of height along this part of 5 stories plus 1. Called the PD concepts and rules, which dangerous concept. Market. I have evidence of that. Pull up. Everybody's coming to. With the suggestion of additional municipal. Apparently is at a mere. So I'm not one of these people that wants progress in construction. I'm not. My dear beach. Environmental problems. Hey, if we don't make some hard and fast decisions, Florida has a very bleak future.
Hello, do you have any questions for Mr. Weber? Do you have any questions? All right. Okay, so now we're through the affected party status. Now would be the opportunity for the public to address the commission. Anyone that's not an affected party and would like to speak?
Ad lib, because of my 3 minutes.
Hate to go back to parking, but the calculations we saw are the closest to providing a legitimate, let's lay out what the facts are so we can have a common understanding. I do want to point out that the entertainment bar space was not included. The factor for that is they've said it's 4,560 square feet. That then is 60, you divide that by 60 square feet, it's another 76 spaces divided by the 50% factor. Another 38 spaces that are required, so we're not talking about a situation. Gradual process. Relative to height, out the couple of condominiums, I agree with them that those are of similar zoning and use. Therefore, since the code says that it will be surrounding similar zoning and use, I would point to a table which I cited previously to call in a meeting. 5 blocks north, 5 blocks south, currently only on the west side of Gulf Boulevard. It does not include the current schooner. It doesn't include the few one-story residential properties on the beach. It's condominiums. The average height is 6 floors. We also have more thorough records where we can look at every radius you want to. Average of surrounding. I also want to talk about density. So we're talking about density as a right under the resort's medium. They have a right to 56. Obligation, /386, in the surrounding similar zoning and use, massing as well. Finally, what no one has asked is, can they get profit margin? Also allows us to have co-development. I recognize, I think there's some certainly compliance. Very much.
Okay. Called to Mr. Nichols. You just let me know after each one of these people stand up and speak whether or not you have any cross-examination questions. I don't need to stop every single time. Just let me know, and then we'll.
It is an opportunity for us. Approving a PD, the city is obligated to conduct reasonable variations from the term public purpose has been defined. Political purpose does not mean maximizing. -10 of the Madeira Beach complies with all procedural requirements. Conditions may be suggested by the developer, the city, or any party. The developer argued to the planning first goal is maximizing the tour. That statement ignores the drafting of the comprehensive plan, which provides that goal 1 is to ensure that the residential, family, and beach community character of the city is maintained and proteced while encouraging certain other activities, including maximizing the tourist trade. The primary goal is maintaining the community character. The subsections apply only if they can be accomplished without harming that primary goal. Ms. Portell stated earlier that the public interest is furthered by redeveloping the schooner site, but ignored that that every public interest consideration listed could be satisfied by a 5 or 7-story building rather than 9, without live music on the rooftop, and by complying with the other height, density, and noise restrictions. Conversely, the community character cannot be maintained under the plan as drafted. Therefore, the PD is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. I do not feel that the developer has met its burden with regard to the height, density, and noise requirements unless the plans are revised to lower the number of stories, reinsert the ambient music restriction, and remove the food and drinks on the beach. Thank you all for your time.
Moment to comment as we our new development prior to the most recent Wall Street full of delight. The Cambria itself has 174 parking spots for 105 rooms. This is 139. Owner is spots are never. The Cambria is a rooftop bar. They offer live music 4 nights a week. No complaints of what I'd like to add. Developers are very focused.
And address, I'm almost across the a lot of different stories. Up and down here, and you could feel that. With the things they're going to do with, like, problems across the street with people. Great thing for the beach. A lot of people are saying, you know, thank you.
bar and the restaurant. Because with the parking or drivers coming out of the lot, at Bula on the beach and restaurant in front, as well as residential properties there, traffic jam. Often the developers saying that they'll figure it out, or realistically, anybody that's been on 146th on a beach day, a Saturday, they know when they see the complete catastrophe that is part. But putting a parking garage there on that is going to be a disaster. Blocks where there is already going to be a traffic. Blocks is not that. Blocks is 2 blocks, but realistically, like I said, during season, that is not going to be far. And the problem is when we have that traffic jam, how many people from Tampa and St. Pete are going to want to come to your beach? When after a few times of trying to get through that traffic, it's going to be impossible. We're going to lose tourism revenue as well as people and local shop access, profits. My main concerns with it is it's mainly already have a problem.
How far apart the,
No, I don't. I understand, sir. My concern with already, if you there and there's a traffic that's already coming, that's my concern with it.
Gordon, I have a quick question for you too. And I agree with you. I think what's going on where Bula is and that restaurant are, that's a parking nightmare right now. My opinion would be if they're going to build a parking garage, don't you think that would help the parking issue? If they're going to have places for those people to park instead of parking on the street there like that?
I don't know if the owner of the property, I believe his name is John Navarro. I don't know if he would be able to even get parking in the new garage.
That's a good question to ask these guys because yeah, I agree with you. I mean that's my district. I agree with you that it's a tight area there, but I think it's a tight area because of all the people that are Bula. I think that's kind of what condenses it the way it is, and a parking garage would offer the opportunity for those people to park there. I would think. Like I said, we can ask these guys that question too, but that, you know, I'm listening to you. I hear where you're coming.
I mean, it's a matter of practicality. Right. And as someone, I mean, I grew up on that street. As someone that's grown up there, it's, you know, I've seen it for the last 25 years, and it's, you know, it's not changing. I mean, the street is not very wide. Also, to be perfectly honest, I mean, it's your district, the residents would suffer. I mean, anybody that tries to pull out of there and get onto Gulf Boulevard, good luck. But anyways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak? Mr. Edwards, state your name. Were you sworn in earlier?
I was, sir. Okay. Tom Edwards, protected address. So parking is a big issue here. When we look at this, we have narrow streets there. On 146, we have 18 feet, 145th, we have 18 feet, 146, we have 21 feet, 147th, about 20 feet wide. All that residential area is mostly duplexes and small apartments. A lot of driveways. You're not going to be able to have a lot of off-street parking there, but if you do this development without adequate parking, that's going to push the people in there. They were talking about that they're going to have valet parking, but once they get a crosswalk there, then they can do it with the valet parking. So how are they going to control that just the residents, people going to the hotel are going to just park in this lot here? The county lot gets filled up, people are driving around, are they gonna be able to park in that lot? Are they gonna be able to get in? Sure, they can go ahead and regulate it with some bars and things like that, but we haven't heard anything about that. We heard about that they have a restaurant that could be 160, people could be seated there. We have a rooftop bar with 4,500 square feet of capacity there. You do the math, that does not equate to 130 parking spaces that they're looking at, as well as staff. Ms. Porto, when we had our planning meeting, talked about, well, people just are gonna need one car to come for one room. Well, if you go ahead and look at your parking passes that are passed out here, the Madeira Sands and Barefoot Beach, for the last month, they've been issuing between 9 and 15 parking passes for those facilities down there because they don't have enough parking. People are coming there and renting a room, and they're having other guests come and join them, and you're getting 2 or 3 cars that are coming. And that also was testified to in their first neighborhood meeting. If you look at the transcript of that, one of the people brought that up. We are not keeping track of the number of parking passes that are issued by the city, and I don't think Ms. Porter will look at that figure there to see that it's going to be increased capacity in what they're saying. The valet parking is only going to be limited for a certain period of time. They don't want to have that cost if they can get this crosswalk. And then you're going to have issues with people getting in and out of there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, there being no one else then, just going to let the commission know that you have on your dais, you have 4 emails that you received, either in support or in opposition. And I'm just going to read the names and addresses so that the public will know. So David Green, 13510 First Street East, Madeira Beach. Send in an email, Gail Huedes, 1336 Gulf Boulevard, number 104, Madeira Beach. William Hoosh, 13336 Gulf Boulevard, number 494. And Linda Brooks, 250 137th Avenue Circle in Madeira Beach. With that being said, it's now time for a summary to be made by city staff, followed by the applicant, and then Mr. Weber, and then Mr. Nichols. So, Linda, do you have a final summary you'd like to make?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Mr. Costello, do you have a summary that you would like to make? Thank you.
I have another PowerPoint to hand out on burden of proof and competent substantial evidence that I'd like to refer to as demonstrative evidence.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that you accept that into evidence as demonstrative aid.
Okay. We are accepting the data that you're giving as demonstrative information.
There was a comment about there were a petition with 175 signatures in opposition. We also submitted a petition with signatures in support of this. There were 267 signatures in support of this PD rezoning. I want to just kind of go over the burden of proof and competent substantial evidence at this quasi-judicial hearing. You heard some of this from Mr. Trask previously. So the burden of proof in a quasi-judicial hearing, the applicant the initial burden is on the applicant to present competent substantial evidence that the objective legal requirements for approval have been met. Once the applicant satisfies the criteria, the burden then shifts to the opposition to show by competent substantial evidence that the application does not meet the published criteria and that the project is adverse to the public interest. And failure to provide competent substantial evidence that it does not meet the published criteria means, as Mr. Trask indicated previously, that it's required to be approved. We have submitted competent substantial evidence on all of the relevant criteria under the Land Development Code and the Comprehensive Plan. This is present in the staff report that is in your packet, in our experts' reports, in the plans that have been submitted, in Ms. Portal's testimony and Mr. Pergolesi's testimony. Some of the comments that you heard about parking, a lot of resident comments about parking. The fact is that the parking not only meets code, it exceeds code. And so in a quasi-judicial hearing like this, that the code is the law, and that's what we're applying here. And the fact is that we meet the code. If there needs to be more parking and there need to be elevated parking requirements, that's a legislative matter for the code to be changed to increase the parking requirements. But here at the quasi-judicial hearing, that's the standard we need to apply, and we exceed that standard. On the second page of the packet, there's a definition of what competent substantial evidence is. Such relevant and material evidence as a reasonable mind would accept as adequate to support a conclusion. There's case law in Florida that says the findings and conclusions of your professional staff constitutes competent substantial evidence. Likewise, testimony from qualified experts like traffic engineers, architects, that constitutes competent substantial evidence. The third page, what is not competent substantial evidence? The courts have said that information based on surmise, conjecture, or speculation is not competent substantial evidence. Statements by local residents of their opinions and desires in opposition to the proposed development are not competent substantial evidence. Those cases are talking about, you may have heard the phrase, the not in my backyard types of objections. Finally, lay opinion testimony on matters requiring expertise, and the courts have specifically found things like traffic problems, increased light, noise pollution, compatibility with surrounding development. Lay opinion testimony from residents who don't have the qualified expertise in those areas is not competent substantial evidence. So, we appreciate the public comment, and we've appreciated the comments from residents throughout this process in trying to get the best project on this site for Madera Beach. But the resident comments providing their opinions on matters that require expert testimony, that require testimony from a planner, for example, as to consistency with the land development regulations and the comprehensive plan, testimony about traffic, parking that requires, engineering expertise or, being an architect, engineers. We also heard some complaints about noise. The cases have specifically said that, noise would be something that would be, expert testimony. So those types of comments from the public are not competent substantial evidence that can be relied on to deny the application. I do want to point out with respect to noise that we have adjusted the design of this project to reduce the rooftop noise and project it so that it is going away from the nearby residential buildings. So, in conclusion, the applicant has met their initial burden, the competent substantial evidence. You heard the testimony from your staff. Competent substantial evidence supports an approval. Consistency with the comprehensive plan, compliance with the land development regulations. The Planning Commission has also found this is consistent and compliant and recommended approval. So then, under the law, the burden then shifts to the opposition to show by competent substantial evidence that we do not meet the criteria for approval. The resident opposition and lay opinions are not competent substantial evidence. That was testimony not about factual matters, but about matters requiring expertise. So accordingly, I would respectfully submit that we are entitled to approval of this rezoning application here tonight based on the law I've just provided on the burden of proof and competent substantial evidence. And so to conclude, again, I will reiterate my request that this board make a motion to approve the PD rezoning to the maximum allowable density under the comprehensive plan. We believe that maximum allowable density is 56 units. The plans submitted by our AIA architect have allowable density of 56 units. Ms. Portal testified to the city's conclusion that the maximum allowable density is 56 units. So that is our request this evening. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions.
Summary, no questions. So, Mr. Weber, now's your opportunity to provide your summary, and then Mr. Nichols, you'll be after that.
If I may approach, I have copies of section 110-393 of the city's code. I have 5 copies here for the commissioner to review. May it please the commission. Timothy Weber here on behalf of Mike Burke. I agree with Mr. Costello to a point on what the law is, and I think where we diverge is what the competent substantial evidence that was submitted to you is, and how the law, as you must apply it, fits into this proceeding. Your PD zoning code is an extraordinary code. You have zoning districts, land use categories, and provisions setting forth what people are allowed to build as of right in your city in every single one of your districts. PD zoning is an extraordinary measure that allows a landowner to not comply with any of the zoning codes applicable to their property, and to come to you with a completely ad hoc project that doesn't have to comply with setbacks and various provisions of your land development code in large part. And as a result of that, you are supposed to have the opportunity at this phase to review that plan and the details to make sure that it is something that you want and meets the requirement of your PD zoning ordinance. And so your Code 110393 entitled Review by Commissioners, this is the criteria against which you are to measure whether or not this applicant has come forth with evidence establishing every single one of the items on here. And if they don't establish every single one of the items on here through evidence, competent substantial evidence, they have not met their burden to establish their entitlement to a PD project. And specifically, 110393 sets forth the criteria you are to measure this project against. Now, I'd like to make a couple comments about that. Your staff report does not address this criteria. You get conclusory statements that, oh, yeah, we think it meets this and that. Your staff report does not address this criteria. And in fact, Ms. Portell testified this evening that many of the items that are set forth in the criteria you're required by law to evaluate are not being submitted to you tonight, but are made conditions subsequent to your approval for you to decide at a later time. Now, that is a glaring omission, or glaring admission, that they are not presenting competent, substantial evidence to you tonight for you to make the determinations required by your code that you must make. And in fact, I went through some of the criteria here, and I asked your planning director, well, do we have a landscape plan that includes the anticipated appearance of the trees and landscape materials after 5 years of growth, to visually provide their size and proportion relative to the proposed buildings, view corridors, curb appeal, pedestrian corridors, etc. You must make a finding that you have that, and the answer was, we do that later. Similarly, I asked about the building materials on the project. Do you have the evidence in front of you today to conclude that appropriate building materials are being used on the project? The answer you got is, you're not getting the evidence of that now, that comes later. The same thing with signage. This is what your code requires, and Mr. Trask instructed you, that if they don't put on evidence so that you can make the findings required by your code, you must legally deny their project. Now, they can come back and they can submit a new project. You may have a blackout period, but as of now, what they have given you does not comply. And in fact, the best evidence of that, the applicant themselves is admitting it. They're saying, well, maybe we don't have 56 density, but you can take care of that by just putting something, a maximum allowable density. I would submit to you that that is pregnant with an admission by this applicant that they don't have competent, substantial evidence to support their density calculation. But don't take my word for it. Your planning director testified that the density calculation here was predicated on the total land area of all the combined parcels, including land seaward of the coastal construction control line, multiplied by 40 units per acre. When under your own comp plan, that residential parcel in R2 that's in a residential medium land use category only allows 15 units per acre. What are we to do with that? That they're getting 40 units per acre out of a lot that only allows 15 per your comp plan, and yet they want to swear and tell you, oh yeah, this meets all the criteria of our comp plan. But your professional staff, as Mr. Costello mentioned, told you that that calculation was based on 40 units per acre, and your code provides for 15. Your comp plan provides for 15. Height. There was a lot of discussion by Mr. Costello of everything that everybody else says you have to disregard, and you can only listen to the applicant and their experts. I didn't see the applicant present a single piece of evidence on the massing of the surrounding buildings, and a calculation of the average height in the area around this. We had a slide that was taken for demonstrative purposes, circling a couple places that had 12 stories, condos. But we had no average calculation presented to you concerning what the average height is. Yet we did have a person came up here and provided testimony, calculated that, told you how she calculated it, gave you the figures, told you the way she figured that, and said no one can figure out how it gets over 6 stories based on any method of averaging this project. And nothing's been presented to explain that. And you can go out, you can say, we'll take the properties to the south, or we'll take the properties just to the north, or we'll cherry pick this one. Nobody in this town can figure out how you get to an average of 9. And your code requires an average. Again, though, competent substantial evidence. Did they present you competent substantial evidence of how they figured an average of 9? I don't see that calculation in your record. There was a lot of discussion about, parking, no, we meet the code, so you have to disregard everybody says. Well, your planning director says there is no code. They're calling around restaurants going, how many spaces do you think you need for this and that? That's what she testified to. Not applying a standard from a code. They're applying an ad hoc review of a PD zoning project. Again, an extraordinary departure from your underlying zoning regulations that are applicable to each of these parcels. So why would the city even entertain granting all this additional height and density and ignoring all the provisions of their code and coming up with ad hoc setbacks and parking calculations? Why would you do that? Well, your PD zoning code says exactly why you would do that, because you're getting a benefit, right? A developer comes in and they're offering things that they're not required by law to do for the benefit of the city. Wait a minute, I asked this developer, I've been searching for this all night. They're saying, we're gonna close the curb cuts. Well, they'd have to do that if they redeveloped under their existing zoning. Same thing with the landscaping. Still looking for what they are offering the city beyond will comply with the minimum requirements of your code later if you give us the maximum possible we could get now. And that's what you're being asked to approve tonight, is bet on the come that staff or the planning board or someone other than you is going to have the ability to hold the line and make sure that the provisions of the code are followed, that all of these criteria that you're required to find exist tonight are met at some later time. Now, there was an amendment to your PD zoning code in 2019 that slightly watered down some of the requirements. And that was in direct result of a circuit court appellate division opinion that under your last PD zoning that you approved in this city, the Madeira Beach Town Center, they came through with the same assurances they met all the criteria, the same assurances that they were given everything, and the same application that didn't have any of the information. And the court says it's a denial of due process in a quasi-judicial hearing to approve something and leave all the details to be ferreted out later when these people are not here to have their day in court. And that's exactly what you're being asked to do again, is to approve now, and all the details are going to be worked out at a different proceeding later, that none of the residents are going to be able to come in here, talk to you, your responsive elected officials, about those criteria. And I would submit that is not consistent with what your code requires, and that is not consistent with the rights of the neighbors to be heard on this measure from a legal standpoint. Wrapping up here, they've presented you an illegal project. They presented you a project that is a unified site plan was the testimony, and it has transient lodging uses in a land use category that is not designed for that and does not support that and prohibits that. And that's what you're being asked to approve, is an illegal project. And there has not been competent, substantial evidence on all of those criteria. I'll quickly just mention a few of them again. 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, you can read those. 10, 11, no lighting plan. Said there's no lighting plan. How are you going to make a finding their lighting plan complies tonight? You cannot do that. Thank you very much.
Nichols, you don't have anything? Okay. So, Mayor, at this point, the quasi-judicial hearing is completed. Now that it's complete, it's back for the commission for consideration. In doing that, I want to read a couple of code provisions to you that are in your code. Hopefully it'll be helpful. Under section 2-13 of your code, it's titled Deliberation by the Board. It says the board shall publicly deliberate on the evidence and shall limit its deliberation to the evidence presented at the hearing. During deliberation, no further testimony shall be taken, and the board shall not ask for additional information from the parties or witnesses. The board shall determine whether the applicant has met the burden of proof by showing that the application is consistent with the city comprehensive plan and complies with all other applicable standards of review and procedural requirements of law. The board shall also consider any lawful conditions which may be imposed necessary to meet the applicable standards of review. Deliberation shall conclude with a determination by the board to approve with conditions, or deny the application. I also remind you that in your charter, under section 4.5, C, under the voting category, it says a supermajority vote of 4 members of the Board of Commissioners for any plan, development, rezoning, or special area plan shall be required for approval. So tonight, to approve this application, at least 4 of you are going to have to vote in favor of it. So with that, Mayor, it's back to the commission. There should be a motion made, and then you would discuss that motion, and then you would vote on it.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2021-01, PD zoning for the Schooner Hotel.
Is there a second?
Second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Any discussion on that, Mayor? I'm sorry, I want to make sure there's no discussion.
No, well, I didn't know if I needed to call the roll or have the discussion first, so.
Discuss first.
Okay, all right, good enough. I really feel like I need to trust our staff, and our staff recommends for this. And frankly, when I look at the rendition of this compared to what is sitting there right now, I think this is a big plus for the city, and I think this is something that needs to go through. We've had problems in the past with the police having to go in there. The fire department has made many, many calls into that existing hotel. And it's a project that needs to be done to tear down an old dilapidated couple of buildings that we've got there and move this city forward.
I think it's a good idea. The only thing I'm concerned about is the parking. Seems like we always have a problem with the parking, no matter where you go. There's always something like that. But I do feel like the people putting this together will work on it and get something through. Like I said, the only thing that's concerning me is the parking, and that was the only thing.
I can't imagine us sitting up here tonight and deciding what kind of trees are going to go in or what kind of flooring they're going to put in or light fixtures they're going to put in. I can't imagine any city commission sitting there and doing that. That just seems odd to me.
Well, I think a lot of these questions can be answered just by looking at the presentation. I mean, it's not like it's devoid of landscape.
No.
And,
That's
I
something
mean,
staff
our
will
duty
be
is
doing.
I guess, to follow the law. I don't see where this is really against the law. I don't think I mean, I understand there was testimony that it's a 12-story building 4 blocks away, but I counted them, it's like 13 stories. And if you count the things at the top that hold the cell towers, it's like a 17-story building at Ocean Sands. 2 of them within 4 blocks. I think the increase in density of only 14 rooms is not that dramatic, compared to what we have there now. I mean, it's Tuna Resort that I'm looking at here, is an improvement from the last time I looked at it. I know I was harping on the Mediterranean look, but I like the beachy look. I think it'll be a real asset. It certainly replaces the rather rundown, or what they call poorly developed site, and vastly improves the look of Madeira Beach. I agree, having to cross the street for parking is not ideal, but we don't have luxury of huge lots on the beach that can, accommodate all that kind of stuff. So to allow the project to go to the next step, which is how I'm looking at this, we're just rezoning the property so that they can go to the next step, get the approval from the state of Florida for the things. Look at the list here. First thing it says, land uses within development shall be appropriate in their proposed location. Well, it is. It's hotel to hotel. Development shall comply with applicable city plans and planning policies. We've had our city staff testify that it is. Number 3, stipulations of approval of a planned development may include the following. Well, that's not a requirement. A minimum of a 5-foot sidewalk shall be provided. I mean, we've worked with the people that are building this hotel in the past. I think they've answered every one of our concerns. I don't know if we have to have a finding that there will be a 5-foot sidewalk, but if that's a requirement here in our code, I'm sure that they'll do it. I'm sure our staff is going, and Linda's not, Ms. Patel's nodding her head, yes. So, I mean, it's not like we're dealing with strangers here. We got Madeira Beach residents that are building this. And
Well, bottom line is, I feel like we need to depend on staff. Staff has gone through this. We don't depend on local residents' opinions. I have certain opinions on things. I have an opinion on whether or not the wall should be built on our border. But it's just that, it's an opinion. It doesn't mean that carves it in stone. So, you can ask 100 people and get 100 different answers. We've got just as many responses for the development as we do against the development, maybe more. And going by what is substantial, competent evidence, I have to say this is a project that at this point in the process, I would, I'm ready to take a vote. Anyone else have anything?
I'm still nervous about the density. We live in Pinellas County, which is the highest density, twice the density of other counties in the state. Madeira Beach is 22% higher than that. We have enough projects on the board that haven't been completed to increase the population by 27%. We only have one major road to handle all this. And we have to protect the loss of service that's going to happen with all these new constructions. So I would like to see the hotel be changed, asking an awful lot.
14 units? 14 units.
And
What's going to happen when they develop more in Treasure Island or Reddington Beach? Who's going to get that traffic? Madeira Beach is going to get that traffic, because this is how you get off of Barrier Island. They built a super Walmart. People go to that every day. They built a new Publix. People from the other beach communities go to that Publix. They expanded Tyrone Mall. People go to that mall. They built a new Home Depot and a new Seminole Town Center. People go there. But it's not Madeira Beach residents that are causing that traffic. It's the way you get off of Barrier Island. And these other communities are just as responsible for our traffic issues, probably more so than Madeira Beach is.
I understand. It's 14 units, but we also subtracted parking spots on that side. So
have you seen the parking at the schooner, the present schooner?
Yes.
You literally have to back out on Gulf Boulevard to be able to get out of a parking spot. You pull straight in, you back out into the street to get out of the schooner. If that's not an accident waiting to happen, I don't know what is. So I have to support city staff on this, and they've done the work. And these other things that have been brought up, those are done by staff and by our planning commission, you know, and they'll work on that as we go through. This is just the beginning. Anyone else?
I'm thinking a lot of these questions or factors here that we're supposed to be looking at are answered. Project scale, the size, the color, the proportion, I mean, it's all right here. I have this information in front. The applicant omitted anything.
So I would say we're ready to vote on this. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson?
no,
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 4-1.
Next on the agenda is development agreement for the schooner project. Director Portell.
I don't know if the city attorney would like to begin with this one. It's a contract.
As a starting point, you should just know that this decision as to whether or not that you're going to approve this development agreement is purely legislative. It's not a quasi-judicial hearing. We're not going to treat it exactly the way that we did the previous one.
Okay.
But with that background in mind, this agreement was negotiated over a number of months and revised a number of times by city staff. I've had an opportunity to review it and comment on it and make some changes as well. We believe it's at a state where it's ready to be considered by you for approval. So with that, I'm going to leave it to Linda to give you some more of the details about the project and about this particular development agreement. Again, it is purely legislative, though, when you're making your decision.
I've spoken with my client, and we would actually like to request a continuance of this consideration of this DA.
That we're following the rule. I read this provision, Mayor, to you. This is section 2-11. It's titled continuances, and this is in your quasi-judicial hearing procedures. A continuance of a quasi-judicial proceeding may be requested by any party at any time prior to the conclusion of the hearing. Such request may be granted by the board in the interests of justice and fairness. If granted, the hearing shall be continued by the board to a specific date and time, considering the reason for the continuance. So bottom line is that continuance can be requested, but you just need to set it to a date certain according to your code for a return.
Okay, and what would that be? Date specific?
Shouldn't we know the reason?
You don't necessarily have to have one if he wants to give you one, but
I thought that's what it said. Given, you know,
Did I
based
pick
on
it
the
up?
reason or given the reason. Maybe I misheard you. Okay.
So we need a date, set a date specific for the continuance.
right, and then maybe 6 months from now, maybe a year from now. So we need to get some direction from Mr. Costello when he wants to continue to.
Moment, may I
Sure.
speak to my client?
While he's doing that, I'm just going to repeat that last sentence. If granted, the hearing shall be continued by the board to a specific date and time, considering the reason for continuance. So
Okay.
that's where it came into play.
Okay.
Yep.
So in light of what has been discussed during the PD rezoning, the evidence presented, the arguments made, we would like an opportunity to go through the DA and make sure that it is perfect. And so we would request that this get continued to the next public hearing before the board, which is, I believe, in August.
August 11th, is that enough time? Do you need a month? Do you need 60 days? Okay, all right,
Month, yes.
all right. Let's put it on the docket then for August 11th meeting.
So there would be a need to be a motion for the continuance to August 11th.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue, hold on. The development agreement for the Schooner project until August 11th.
Is there a second?
Second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Andrews?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Hudson?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. Just so the public knows then, this will be considered then on August 11th at the City Commission meeting at 6 p.m. here at City Hall. So it will not be re-advertised.
Okay, next is unfinished business. I don't think we've got any for tonight. New business, deciding to do an RFP on proposals to build and operate high dry storage facility at the marina. And since I kind of brought this up on the high dry, and we went through that RFP, and I still have, that feasibility study, I still have questions on that feasibility study because I don't think Cardinal did a good job on that feasibility study. They asked one company what it was going to cost to build that. So I can't imagine they would only ask one company and came out with the figures they did because both myself and the city manager have spoken to other companies that are way, way under what the Cardinal projected costs of this are going to be. So I would like to see us, number one, go back to Cardinal. I hope we haven't paid them everything yet, and tell them they need to take another look at this feasibility study because I don't think they did a good job. But having said that, we have been discussing a public-private venture. And that's something I would like to see go out on RFP, just to see what we get back in and see dollars amount we're looking at and how much a private company is going to be ponying up for this project.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a suggestion? I know we have talked about it in the past, and I know we've bounced this around. Let's be honest. I mean, we're a few weeks out from having egg on our face and spending $50,000 on something that I think we're just admitting right now did not bear the fruit that we thought it was going to. My suggestion is let's move this to the workshop. I'd like to discuss this more in depth, and you even brought up the card note thing. And I'd like to talk about public-private partnerships, because I don't think we've actually kicked that can around enough. I don't think we've discussed it enough, and the pros and cons of that. I mean, the truth is, you do one of these, you're basically giving up. You know, I've read a lot of, I've gone back and looked at a lot of the St. Pete Marina one, which ironically was done by Safe Harbor, which was the one who gave the information. And I've read a lot of the information on that, and you know, it's damning. But you know, I don't want to just say because I read something that we should do, but I think it's something we need to discuss a little further before we throw something out for RFP and see if we really want to do this going forward, and if this is the right time to do it. You know, I mean, if we come to the conclusion at the workshop that we're ready to do it, I think we can do a consensus and do it. But I think I'd like to talk through it a little bit more.
Sure, that makes sense. I mean, when I saw the Cardinal report, I was just, I set it up here. I about had heart failure. So, yeah, we can do that.
You're gonna be doing both A and B together then?
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah, we might as well put those both on a workshop. Yep. I don't know how full our schedule is looking for August. We may have to do it in September. That's okay too.
I think we're gonna have a busy day that day, because we have a budget, workshop that we're gonna be doing before our regular workshop.
Okay.
And possibly a special.
On the 28th, on July 28th? I did not know, I'm not here July 28th. I let everybody know. I'm gonna be able to make that workshop.
Andrew will probably explain it, because
I didn't think.
Yeah, it's not on our calendar.
It wasn't on my.
No.
Yeah, well, I wanted to propose a budget workshop to you all to present all the financial information of the fund, so.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't be here, so, I mean, I'm only 1/5 of this group, so you guys can plow ahead.
we can put it to a different date when everybody's here.
We can put it to the August workshop or even the September workshop. It's not anything that we have to do this second.
The only time constraint is we do want to set a tentative millage rate. I set that, enter into our trim system. I believe the deadline for that is August 5th. I'll double check now. And that's not something we need to do a public hearing. But I was just going to present to you all the financial information of the general fund to allow you to make an informed decision, at least for the tentative millage rate. And then we'd have our first public hearing in September where you would set the preliminary millage rate.
Andrew, it says on here that we have the a BOC budget special meeting on the 21st of this month. So we have one next week, not the 28th. We have one on the 21st. That's what it says on the calendar we just got. Excuse me, Vice Mayor, are you going to be here then?
Yes.
All right, well, I'll tell you what.
And in fact, that one is on my calendar.
Yeah, so let's do, if everybody doesn't mind, maybe we just bump that up and have that meeting at 6 o'clock. But maybe if we have something else that you want to discuss that we're talking about on the 28th, or is that the meeting that you're talking about?
I was wanting to do a meeting on the 28th to present all the information.
Can we do that at 4 o'clock on the 21st?
We can. I'll work very quickly to get the agenda posted ASAP so we can accelerate that.
Cool.
So start the whole thing at 6 and just go on from there, is that what we're talking
Or
about?
start at 4.
4?
On the 21st, yeah.
It says on July the 21st, BOC votes on preliminary millage rate. You want that to say tentative?
It'd be the tentative millage rate, yeah.
Okay, because that's scheduled for 6 o'clock on the 21st.
Okay.
Well, that would be at a regular meeting.
So,
That wouldn't be a workshop item, that would be a regular meeting, because if you're going to vote on the tentative millage, it has to be an actual vote.
Yeah, it's a BOC budget special meeting.
Okay.
Is how it's presented, and
so we'll do a budget workshop we can do it at 5, and then do the special meeting at 6, and
5 now, not 4.
it's up to you. If you want to do it 2 hours before or an hour before, you guys let me know. If you want to do 4 o'clock and to give us plenty of time, or go for 5 and then just immediately do the special. The idea would be to do the special meeting immediately thereafter.
Are you going to have enough time at 5 if we go at 5 for your presentation and whatnot?
I mean, I think if we go long, that's okay, and we just do the special meeting immediately thereafter.
Good.
I'd rather, if we do it at 4, then we're done at 5:15, then you're kind of sitting around until 6. So if we do it at 5, then we can just
roll into it.
roll right into it. And the other thing I wanted to do is propose an ordinance for a fee and collection manual change for sanitation fees, because if you recall, through the budgeting process, I would propose an update to the sanitation fees. And so we'll go through that in the budget workshop, and then, given your comfort level, we'll put that ordinance, first reading on the ordinance together to amend the fees collection manual for updated sanitation fees.
There's other things in there too that we were gonna.
I think there were recycling fees, that's also part of that.
Recycling would be part of it, yep.
Okay, yeah, because well, we all got a handout on recycling. That'll give everyone a chance to take a look at it. And,
5 o'clock then?
yes.
Okay.
Okay, next is, staff reports. City manager, have you got a report for us?
There's one that's in the packet, but I also wanted to back up to our hurricane preparation. I wanted to thank 2 businesses, Frabada's, who refused to accept any money for the food for the volunteers that were working and the staff that was working at the sandbags on 2 separate days. You know, we even tried to come in and pay them, but they caught on to our act and wouldn't accept the money. So, I wanted to do a shout out for them and for Myers House of Sweets. They also brought down some of their sweet chocolates. I'm still on my diet, so I didn't have any of those.
And I think Director Wepford ate all of them.
But
they were really good.
You know, I think that was the community, and obviously having the commission represented as strongly as we did on a number of those days, and then also with the great work that the staff did. You know, I've already talked to them about this, but publicly, I think everybody really needs to know everybody produced. They put out 110% in the hot conditions, and you know, so, and then obviously we had residents that jumped in and were helping. Angel from our janitorial, he was directing traffic, and you know, it's the whole day. So, and then we had our parking folks out on Tuesday, I think it was, And it was just, like I said, a unified effort between the community, the staff, the commission, and when you sit back and I was just kind of in awe a little bit with how everybody chipped in. So a big thank you to everybody that helped. We don't even know all their names, but it was definitely good, and to have the businesses give us that type of support was just outstanding. And that's all I have to add.
Yeah, and I think Angel was there both days. Yeah, all day, both days. Yeah.
I do have one comment on the city manager report. The Holiday Isle project. That is just an empty lot with piles of dirt, with weeds growing all over the place. 1% of progress got done. It's been years. I think no scheduled start date. We need to pressure them. Either clean it up and make it presentable, because that's one of the first things you see when you go over the, if you look to the left, that's what you're looking at. Mountains of dirt with weeds growing up.
And that aging sign.
And the sign that's falling down.
And the docks.
Right.
Well, I think they cleaned up the docks. I think the docks are
Not
pretty
on
new.
no, look right across from the fuel dock
Oh, okay.
with the covered dockage there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm
I just think we
surprised
need
that hadn't gone
to
down
light
with
a
the storm.
fire, I know those permits have deadlines. Are we just extending them and extending them? Let's stop extending them.
Well, they did pick up the permit for the condominium part of the project, so their 6 months are running. They're probably a couple months into it, because it was, so they probably have about 4 months left on that. But they never moved ahead on the permits for the actual hotel site. So I think they either, I don't even think they ever submitted them within that time. So they did their test pilings, which are the pilings that you see there, but the hotel project itself, to the best of my recollection, they never even submitted those plans. They, with COVID, unfortunately, they lost some of their investors, and but yeah, I'll definitely report back and get an update on where we are and get that place cleaned up.
Someone on their shoulders wanting them to clean that place. I mean, we don't let anyone here have lots that look like that.
Right.
Mayor, if I could just a little discussion on that. So because of the fact of the COVID situation, because of the governor's executive order, and because of the state statute that extends or tolls permitting during this time, the way the tolling works is that as long as they send us a letter, and I think that they've sent the city a letter. I think it was their attorney, Katie Cole.
Yeah.
And you get not only a 6-month extension, you get the 6-month extension on top of whatever the emergency period was. So if the governor had an emergency order, executive order for a year, they get 18 months extension of their permit without any action on behalf of the city. All they have to do is to give us notice that they're claiming that. So I don't know how that timing works out directly.
Right.
But I'm going to tell you that there's a state statute and the governor's order that allows them to do that, and we don't have any control over that.
Well, I don't think that allows them to leave to have it.
No, that's
I mean,
correct.
we make, really?
No, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
They're not allowed to do that.
We don't want 7-foot-tall weeds growing.
Correct.
We don't let anyone have that.
Right, and so your code enforcement staff obviously can cite them for whatever those issues are. I'm just telling you their permits can be extended.
And
because
that's
they're
fine. I mean, as long as if they're going to be doing something, it's encouraging to hear that they want to go ahead with the condos. I think that's great.
Well, they pulled the permits.
Well,
They still haven't done anything yet, work-wise, but hopefully they can get that done.
Okay. Agenda setting. Is there anything else that needs to go on this workshop, or anyone wants to pull?
Well, this looks to be, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, this looks to be kind of a pretty packed one, but I got two that I'd like to put on the back burner. I think Ray Kerr brought up some interesting points today about residential impact fees, and at some point, we got time to talk about those before the impact fees come into effect, but it's something I think we need to discuss, because I think he's made some good points on that. At some point, I'd like to talk about Mr. Preston's idea about the pesticide and the fertilizers. That's worth a discussion as well. But the one I do want on there, you know, if anything we heard tonight, a lot of, was the need for parking in this city. And I'll tell you, I was down in Johns Pass a couple times. I talked to a bunch of the business owners there too. Everybody's in favor of a parking garage. Nobody's saying no to having more people park at Johns Pass so they can go into their shops and buy stuff. So, you know, I think it's something that we have that piece of property, and I think that we are looking at a golden opportunity, and I think the biggest thing that's wagging on our face is there's somebody charging $40 a day, whether you park for freaking 30 minutes or you park for 8 hours, $40 a day. And I mean, you know, if they're mad about something, they're not mad about our $2.50 an hour parking rates anymore. That's what they're angry about. I think it gives us a golden opportunity to create revenue for perpetuity, but I think it also gives us a golden opportunity to raise our prices. So I think it's kind of a twofold thing. So I'd really like to kind of just get that in the queue and get the ball rolling and get some information on it. Maybe the timing with, and I know building materials, from what I've heard, building materials have started to dwindle down a little bit from where they peaked, where they peaked in May. But I'd like to get some information on that and potentially move forward, because I think that's a no-brainer and a home run.
Yeah, I think so too. And you know, though, and we can talk about this at a workshop.
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh. 130th, what?
Yeah. So do we want to put that on the July 29th agenda, or do we want to put it on August workshop?
I'd love to put it on the July workshop. Let's just kind of talk through it. I don't think, this isn't something that we need a whole study on or anything like that. I mean, we just need an engineer to go, boom, this is what you do, you own the property, here's the variances, here's what you need, let's go. You know, I mean, all right.
Anything else? Just a point of clarification, Commissioner Andrews, on the residential impact fees and the pesticides in August for those?
Yeah, I mean, let's see what's on. I mean, like I said, the residential impact fees, I don't think we really have to vote on again for another 6-8 months or something like that. But I would like to hear Ray kind of walk through that in a different light, because I think he makes some really clear sense. I think that's kind of the sticking point we all had was, you know what, I don't mind charging a business to their impact fees. Man, I'll tell you what, the one woman who's your neighbor, Commissioner, Vice Mayor Price, that got me a little bit. I mean, come on, she's not even adding a toilet, and we're going to jack her some money. That rubs me the wrong way. So I'd like to kind of figure out something. If there is a way that we can, and I think Jerry said there wasn't, but Ray seems to think that if there's a way that we can pull residential out of that, I think we look at that.
We can look at it, but I don't think we can from all I hear. So, okey-doke. That's on August.
Okay, and maybe this is something we can discuss tonight, since whatever, but what are we going to do with red tide? I think we've been lucky so far. Will getting people to clean up fish and do all that kind of things, does that happen automatically, and we don't need to do any part or cause any problems?
That's,
in red.
I think the county is staged to do that, and I've been in correspondence with Linda Cheney for funding from the state. We need it.
Yes, and the city of St. Pete has also been trying to contact the governor, but the county is here. They are staged down at Johns Pass Park. They have boats that are out in the waterway that are collecting the fish before they get here. But the problem is there's 2 layers of red tide currently going on. There's on top, they're dying, they're getting them, but then there's a bottom layer. So the county is in full effort. They're bringing out more equipment every day. Lucky enough, we don't have it at the levels of I just got the report, I think around 5:30, 6 o'clock today. We are at low levels here, whereas south of us is medium to high, or even sometimes quadruple the amounts for high. So we are on it. I am working with the county daily. I went and talked to Little Moat Marine today before, right after the torrential downpour, and they're out there. They were out there working in the rain. So the county is out collecting fish, but they will not deploy the contractor for anything less than 1,000 fish. So whereas I've received photos from Tierra Verde, their canals are completely covered in fish. They're focused down there.
Right.
Here, yes, we have some dead fish, here and there, but we're watching, we're driving around daily checking our problem canals.
I ordered my own dip net.
I checked your canals today, they were good.
No, but seriously, my dip net won't be until tomorrow, but
I do have one, the one I ordered, I thought it was a 12-foot pole and it's like 5, so that's not gonna work, but.
So let me ask you, I've been just when fish are up against my seawall, I just pick them up and been putting them in my garbage.
That's fine.
That's cool?
That's
Okay,
absolutely
all right.
fine. So I had a
thought that
resident
was-
call me from First Street East today, and no, as you all know, we don't have a boat. We don't have any way to get out on the water. So, she said, I will fish them out of the water. I said, absolutely, just double bag it and put them at the curb, and we will absolutely pick them up. So if you're people in your neighborhood, just you want to tell them that, they can call me, and then that way I know that it's there and we can get it, so it's not sitting and baking. All right? And we can send you the report that we got today, but it's changing on a daily basis. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that it stays south. Thank you.
anything else? Thank you. Morgan, have you got anything for us? That's it.
Thank you for this.
Wow. This meeting is adjourned at 10:23 p.m.
Check that against my calendar.
Huh?